Welcome to Routing for Success, the show where we interview today's top logistics professionals, providing them a platform to share their stories and best practices. I'm your host, Emily Blair.
And I'm your host, Jake Hirsch. Today we interviewed Harold Spears with Aries Transportation and Aries CDL Institute. Harold has developed a non-profit driving school that he uses as a feeder and recruiter for his FedEx business and other contractors. Harold discusses how to inspire and lead drivers to success as a FedEx contractor employee and in life. You're not going to want to miss it.
This episode is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. AP Equipment Financing can bring you the best deals on step vans, panel vans, cutaways, and more, deliver them straight to your facility, and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description to this episode or visit apfinancing.com.
Harold Spears, welcome to Routing for Success.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
We really
here.
appreciate your time. I'd like to start us off today just having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your FedEx business. Do you run P&D or Linehaul, and where are you out of? About how many trucks do you run?
We have about 10 trucks. We run out of Kansas City, Kansas. Well, we run out of Kansas. We run out of the Lenexa hub. We run out of the KC Mo hub. And we run out of the Olathe hub. We have a mix of team runs, P&D, and just basic pure line haul runs.
Awesome. And
So Harold,
I apologize. I was just going to ask how long you've been running for FedEx.
For about 4 years.
Harold, we haven't had many people on that are both P&D and line haul. How do you balance the two? And do drivers switch back and forth between the two if they have CDLs? How do you manage that?
Here's the thing. Our P&D is a kind of not a true P&D. Our P&D are big trucks. We don't have any, like vans or anything like that. We have one basic client, and that's Chewy. So we just run from Belton, Missouri to Olathe or Lenexa for the most part. And we run, 53-foot trailers. So yes, the drivers sometimes switch from line haul to P&D. We try to train drivers to do both.
Very good. And another thing, talking about training drivers, that's why we brought you on today. So Harold, I thought it was really neat when you shared with me recently that you are starting a CDL school.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, one of the reasons, I think I always wanted to have a school, but what really pushed me into the school was because we would get drivers from other schools, and they were what we call in the trade steering wheel holders. They didn't know much about driving a truck. All they did was pass the test. And most schools teach you basically how to pass the test. And I wanted to create real truck drivers, people who understood the business, because you get new drivers and they think that they're gonna come out of school, their license is still warm from the printer, and they're gonna make $150,000 or $200,000 a year driving locally, being home every night, and that's a fantasy. But in order to get students in, schools tell people this, and it's really not true. Had just recently had a driver. He came on. He wants to do team driving. He said he had a partner and the partner had some unrealistic expectations. Um, I don't know if you know, I make money when wheels are turning. So if the wheels are not turning, I'm not making money. S- But this guy, he wanted to be home like every 2 weeks. That's not realistic. So I told them that they had to stay out at least 3 weeks, um, or 3 weeks to a month, and he couldn't understand. So here's this re-education that I have to go through with drivers, and I tell a lot of people as a joke that uh, I own a trucking company, but in reality, it's a adult daycare. I manage, I babysit grown folks that I pay.
So when you are setting expectations in your school, what are you telling drivers to expect when just coming out, getting their CDL, and going to work?
I tell them that I'm going to tell them that they have to pay their dues. It's no different than when you just got your driver's license. Your you either you either one or two things. You paid your own insurance or your parents paid your insurance. That insurance immediately went sky high because you don't have experience. And it's just this industry is the same. If you're a new driver, the insurance is higher. So you don't get to make the money that the guy that's been driving for 10 years and's got a clean driving record. That's just in every job, for the most part, you don't become president just because you ran for president. You have to be a congressman, you have to be a senator. You have to put in your time and understand your industry, hone your craft, and then the money will come. But to get out of school, go to school for 3 weeks and make 50 or $60,000, that's amazing. You have college graduates that make 60, $70,000. They've been to school for, some have master's degrees. You can't make, if you have a psychology degree, you have to have a master's degree to start making $100,000 a year. Or you have to take a job somewhere that nobody else wants. You, you know, to get out after 6 weeks and make, $1,000 a week, $1,200 a week after 6 weeks worth of training with a high school diploma, that's amazing.
Yes, it is.
You just changed your life. Just imagine you spent 5 years in prison, you come out in a matter of 6 weeks, you're making $60,000 or $70,000 legitimately. You don't have to worry about your doors getting kicked in. You don't have to worry about losing your life. It's amazing.
And Harold, you have a CDL as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How
I
old were
do.
you when you got your CDL and how did you get started driving?
Um, Long story. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, so I did, a few things in my life. I had a construction company, an electrical construction company. The construction company, it went under because the construction market tanked out. And so I left Kansas City and I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, back home where I'm from. And after a minute, I had to find a job. The money ran out. So I've picked a job that I could do very quickly and make good money, and it was trucking. Decided to, I got my CDL and I decided I wanted to go to nursing school. So I went to nursing school. And I met a guy by the name of James Rogers, who's still a good friend of mine, said, hey, you know what? I really want to be a nurse, but I can make a lot more money doing trucking than what I was doing before. I went to work for him. I only made $200 a week learning the trucking business. And within 8 months, I had an Amazon contract. I ran Amazon for 3 years, got tired of Amazon and their methodology and sat around for 90 days and I got a FedEx contract. 4 years later, last year's revenue was 4.1 million. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's just consistency and perseverance.
Now, Harold, with your driving school, are you using that as a feeder into your FedEx business and you're taking the top people and opening up a job and recruiting through that?
Exactly, Jake. It's we all heard about multiple revenues. Currently, right now, I pay a recruiting company anywhere from $900 to $1,200 for a driver. I got a trucking school. Not going to pay $1,200 for people that I'm producing. And I also get to sell those people to other contractors like myself. So, you know what? By starting a trucking school, I've also started a recruiting company. The good thing about my school is that we have what we call an apprenticeship. It's a state apprenticeship, and we have a federal apprenticeship with the Department of Labor. So if you come to my school, Jake, day one, when you start school, I can hire you. I can pay you a stipend. I can get you through school for free and turn around and you will be hired. You can come work for me. Most CDL schools say, hey, come to our school and we'll try to get you a job afterwards. I can guarantee you a job. My school is certified by the Kansas Bureau of Regents, which is the secondary Department of Education for Kansas. We're also a certified apprentice, and we're a certified FedEx training provider. So everybody that comes through my school can go to work for FedEx. If your school is not certified for FedEx, you cannot work for FedEx.
I don't know a whole lot about FedEx rules as far as drivers, but it was my understanding that after you finish school, there are additional requirements before you can start driving for FedEx. Can you talk, is there any period in between graduating with your CDL and being able to start with FedEx?
Well, here's the FedEx rules. You have to have 6 months of driving and a certificate. That certificate has to be a certificate from an approved FedEx school. So I had to take my curriculum, I had to submit it to FedEx for approval. The only way you can come out and work for FedEx directly is that you have to have a year's worth of verified driving within a 3-year period. Or lastly, they have an ELDP program. It's an entry-level driver program where I can take Jake just out of school. I can put Jake with what we call a lead driver. Jake has to drive with this lead driver for 7 weeks, and he has to get so many hours behind the wheel. Once he gets those hours in those weeks, he can drive on his own for FedEx. But here's the thing. Jake's been told that out of school, he can make $100,000. And then I tell Jake, well, listen, I'll pay you $150 a week. No, a day. Sorry. $150 a day while I train you. And some people say yes, and some people say no. Jake still has to feed his family. He still has to pay his car note. He still has to do all the things he would normally do. Is Jake willing to make that sacrifice? Does Jake have that foundation? Does he have that support system to do that? And this is what I want to tell my students up front, so they don't have any unrealistic expectations about the career field that he's getting in. Jake went home and told his, young wife that, I'm getting ready to go to the CDL school, and in 6 weeks, I'm going to make $120,000 a year, and I'll be able to buy you a nice car, and I'll be able to buy you the moon and Pandora and, all the things that, young wives want. But Jake, in order to make that money, like $120,000 a year, Jake has to be over the road for 3 to 4 weeks. How is Jake's relationship with his wife? Does Jake have young kids? Is his wife willing to, assume all those responsibility while Jake brings home, $2,200, $1,800 a week? I mean, how mature is Jake's wife? What kind of, do they have a loving relationship? If they already fighting, over the road is not for Jake. Because Jake wants to come home. So,
I feel like
it's a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle. It's not fun and games. You do make good money. You make great money. But and you can make tons of money if you're willing to make the sacrifice. I started out with FedEx with 4 trucks. 2 of the trucks I only ran 2 of them for 8 months. I still had to make the note. So guess who drove day and night? Me. And when I was driving before FedEx, I broke a lot of rules. I didn't use the ELD, but I made $1,300 in them. I made $13,000 in a month. I have a guy who worked for me. I trained him from right out of school. He became a supervisor for me. And he said, hey, Harold, I can do this, the same thing you're doing on my own. He went out and bought a truck. He didn't realize it took $5,000 when his truck broke. I'm helping him out now. He called me and he said, hey, I have a lot of respect for what you do. I didn't really understand the back office of what you do. So it's not for the weak-hearted. You're up, all night. You're up all day. The paperwork you generate, somebody has to do it. So you do it. Either you do it or, again, while Jake is driving, who's doing Jake's payroll? Who's handling Jake's invoices? Who's handling his maintenance? If Jake is married to a prima donna, Jake is going to have a hard life. So
I feel like I have to respond to all these questions since you're using me as your example. but my wife is great.
Okay.
So something that you mentioned, Harold, you are paying people as they're going through school, and you're paying for their schooling. So is that your FedEx over the road business that's doing that, or is that a grant through the
That's
state?
the school that's doing this. And because I've networked really hard, there are agencies out there. There's 2 agencies in Kansas and Missouri. I don't know if you understand how Kansas and Missouri are set up. They're 2 different states, but you have Kansas City, Kansas, and you have Kansas City, Missouri. And if you didn't know, Jake, I could walk you across the street. We can go from one sidewalk to the other. You'll be in a whole nother state. There's a street called State Line Road. It's the border. You can't buy liquor on Sunday in Kansas, but you can buy liquor in Missouri. So, hence, all the liquor stores are on the border on the State Line Road.
So, Harold, how does the state impact where you placed your school? Is your school in Kansas or Missouri?
It's in Kansas.
Was there a specific reason that you put it in Kansas instead of Missouri, or was that just where you found the location?
Uh, I like Kansas. First of all, when I first got here in '89, I lived in Missouri for like maybe the first 7 years, and then I moved to Kansas. And I like Kansas. I like Kansas. And some of Kansas, which is Wyandotte County, is a depressed area. They have, what is the term? I can't think of the term right now, but it's an impoverished area. And with that, if you set up business there, you get access to grant money, you get access to federal funding. There's government certifications like Hub Zone, which is a geographical area. If you locate your business in a Hub Zone, you get to get Hub Zone certified. Hence, you get access to certain Hub Zone contracts. Me being a minority, I get to apply for minority business or disadvantaged business. So if you strategically place your business, you have access to funds or access to opportunity, more access to opportunity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Harold, if you were to start over before you got your FedEx contract, would it make sense to actually have a driving school before going into FedEx so you have that feeder from the get-go?
You're right. You're exactly right.
Mm.
You're exactly right. I wish I could have did it backwards.
So I've heard FedEx contracting called an HR business. I haven't heard it adult babysitting outside of you, but I like yours better. But when you have these drivers graduating that you're not going to be hiring on, how are you going to be placing them with other contractors? Or how would a contractor get in touch with you if they wanted to hire some of your drivers coming out of school?
Well, this year I didn't, but I'm going to next year go to the Linehaul conference. We have a ton of contractors here just in this area. We have 3 major hubs. Well, 2 major hubs and 2 minor hubs. Lenexa is responsible for Olathe. Kansas City is responsible, and it doesn't have a name, but we call it 659. So you have one major hub and one, kind of little hub. So you have 4 hubs right here in this area that you can toss a rock and hit all four. So in all, this is a little tight knit community. So without even going to the Linehaul conference, I can get drivers from, in touch with contractors right here in this area. And if I give them a better deal than, the other contractors, the other recruiting agency, why not use me? Especially when I know exactly what a contractor is looking for in a driver. Other schools don't really have an intimate knowledge of what a contractor is looking for. They have a general idea, but to have, are you familiar with dollies?
I wouldn't know how to pick one
Well,
up, but I know they're heavy. That's all I know about them.
they're heavy. They're 250 pounds. If you get one on the slope and you get it rolling, there's nothing you can do. It's going to roll. If you don't manage it right, it'll break your hand or you'll throw your back out. It's very dangerous if you don't know how to handle it. As a contractor, I'm losing money every time I spend time training a new person, right? So if they come out trained, they're like gold. I gave them the basics of moving a dolly around. I've showed them how to hook it up. I showed them how to hook the hairlines. I showed them how to move it around on unlevel ground. I intentionally did not pave a flat surface on the maneuverability course because that's not realistic. And when some people come out who don't understand, they say, well, you got dips and, you got bumps and you got puddles. Okay. Well, why didn't you pave it? Because that's what the road looks like in the real world. You know what? We created some tight spaces because it's tight spaces in the real world.
So, Harold, it sounds like you have actually. Before I ask this question, what's the name of your driving school? Because I don't know if you've actually
It's
mentioned
Aries CDL Institute.
Aries CDL Institute. So it sounds like you have created an entire facility that is built just to train FedEx CDL drivers specifically. Is that correct?
No, not specifically.
Okay.
But
okay.
It is a section of, we want to create a total driver. Part of FedEx is big here. So why not gear a portion of your curriculum specifically to embrace those opportunities? We're going to, and the things that I'm doing are setting my school light years ahead of other schools. I mentioned the phrase steering wheel holder. You've seen trucks driving with like a kind of tarp over them. That's a skill set. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to tarp anything. So if I've been driving since 2009, I can get a job anywhere. But if I went to a company that specifically pulled loads that need to be tarped, they would have to train me. So why not provide people that have a basic knowledge of tarping? And that's what I want to do. Another thing that we plan to do is we're taking people out of the Department of Corrections. So they've had some issues in their lives. We're going to try to, we're not try to, but we're building a life skill section into our program. So the first week is going to have nothing to do with nothing to do with school. It's going to, what I offer is a tool. That headset you have on right now is a tool. You give me the headset, I don't know how to operate it, never seen it. The tool is useless. You have to say, hey, let's open your mind to how to use this tool. And since I gave you this tool, what plan do you have to use this tool? Because it's only a tool. My license basically is just a piece of plastic, just like Jake's here or yours. But I use it as a tool to make $4.1 million. It's how you use your tools.
Question for you regarding pulling students from Department of Corrections. With FedEx, are you going to experience any issues with background checks? Because my understanding is that FedEx has pretty strict regulations for background checks. Is that correct?
Yes. We're going to have some issues, but those people with issues we'll know up front, and we can steer them in other places.
That makes sense.
And the trucking industry as a whole is felon friendly. Some big companies like FedEx, UPS, JB Hunt, those other companies, they kind of frown on, criminal backgrounds, depending on what it is. They don't like violent offenders. They don't like, people who have, theft or larceny in their background because they ship goods, and that's understandable. And they don't like people who deal in drugs. They have trucks. Trucks move drugs. So just understanding the industry. So I can tell a young man coming out of the Department of Corrections, maybe you can't work for FedEx right now. You need time to be in this industry and let your background not affect you. Most background checks are anywhere from 5 to 7 years. Some go back 10 years. And I'm going to sit here and tell you the truth. I'm not a choir boy. I'm not an altar boy. I've done things in my past that I'm not very proud of. But they're so far back in the past, it doesn't matter. I'm not the same, person I was 40 years ago. You probably wouldn't like me in my 20s.
That makes a lot of sense, Harold. Certainly like you now, though. You're awesome. So, how are you getting trucks to train drivers on for your driver school?
Some of the trucks are coming out of my fleet. They're old trucks. They're, again, other contractors, they're getting rid of trucks. Trucks are, they're not hard to get. Trailers, not hard to get. Drivers, hard to get. There's a shortage. And I'm not going to try to quote the numbers and get them wrong, but there is a very, very, very high shortage of drivers in the United States of America. And if you understand how we operate it, 85% of everything that you own, touch, or eat has been on a truck. The DOT mandating the ELD, the electronic log, forced a lot of old school drivers out. They just didn't want to deal with it.
Can you talk more about that? I'm not familiar with how that really changed things for drivers.
Well, the older drivers that are my age, and we get them sometime, and they ask me, "Do I have a stick, a manual?" Yeah, no, we have automatics. They don't like driving automatics. Some loads that they carry, you need to be able to shift. FedEx, they run like trailers, 20,000 pounds. Not, yeah, 20,000. They're light. Sometimes the wind will blow them to the side if you're not careful. They don't have a real weight on them. The other truckers are used to carrying very heavy loads, 40, 50,000 pounds. So they're going up the steep hill, they need to shift gears. If they're going down a steep hill, they need to drop the gears, because when you get that weight behind pushing you down the hill, you need to slow it down. Some drivers, old school drivers, won't even drive for you if you don't have a stick. And it does. I learned how to drive a stick in school, but I couldn't drive one now. I haven't driven one for years. And if you didn't get grandfathered in, you have to take your test in the stick, or you have restrictions on your license. Back in the day, you didn't even have to sit in a class to get your license. You could just come with the truck, take the test, and get your license. Now it's mandatory that you have seat time in a classroom to get your license. And there's a whisper, a bird going around saying the state of Kansas, if you're not certified by a secondary educational institute, you're not even going to be able to have a school.
So would that cut down on existing schools, or what impact would that have if that comes true?
As a business owner, I'm hoping it's going to cut down on existing
Makes
schools.
sense.
And I think it is. One or two of them are going to drop. The bigger schools, like in this area, 160, some of the bigger schools are probably going to make it. We do have, you know what, and I'm going to go against the marketing rule here. We have a school here. It's called Apex. Great school. Great school. My goal for my school is to beat their reputation. I want to be the number one school in this area. So that's why I'm doing all these other things to make Erie CDL Institute the best school in the Kansas area. You know what? As a trucker, as a company owner, I love to see drivers that come out of Apex. They've been well trained.
That's amazing. So, Harold, for contractors that are listening to this, for drivers that are thinking about getting into the CDL space, how can they find you? How can they sign up for their school? How can they possibly use you for recruiting?
We have, they can just go to our website. It's 80cdli.org.
We'll put that in the notes.
And we're also a nonprofit.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, we're a
That's
nonprofit.
really cool.
So we have, I set it up that way so we can take advantage of grant money, and bigger companies like yours. We're happy to take donations.
Harold, if if someone is interested in getting their CDL watching this, it sounds like most of the grants available were coming from Kansas and Missouri. Can you accept students from anywhere, or is there a geographical limitation?
because we're a federally apprenticeship certified company, we can take students from anywhere. And we can, if you want to come from Iowa, Nebraska, Omaha, Hawaii, we'll still take you. You know, another thing we plan to do in the near future for our um, uh, there's another term. It's it, justice citizens, people who have come out of the Department of Corrections. We're going to build sort of like a halfway house where there are things that people that have issues that come out of Department for Corrections. They have issues with housing. They have issues with getting their documents back, driver's license, social security card, those type things. We're going to house those people for the time that they come out of the Department of Corrections if they meet the criteria for our school. We're going to house them for that 6 weeks. Then we're going to house them for another 30 to 45 days while we help them find gainful employment in the trucking industry. Most schools, you have to get from A to the school and from the school back to A. We're planning to provide a passenger van. So if you are serious about your craft, you'll be at a certain place at a certain time. It'll be a pickup point, and then we'll drop you back off at that pickup point.
Wow, that's amazing. Sounds like there's so many benefits to your
Yes.
school. We are approaching our time
Okay.
mark. So if you've listened to the show, we have 3 questions that we ask every contractor. Before we jump into that, Emily, is there anything else that you were itching to ask Harold?
No, man, this was an amazing thing to learn about. It sounds like it's almost more of a ministry than a school. There's a lot of amazing opportunities for people to learn and grow as a person and get gainful employment afterwards. So very cool. Thank you, Harold. I think we are ready for the 3 to thrive if you are, Jake. Oh,
Well, if 1 second,
yes.
if you
Cool.
have it.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in my life. People have helped me and provided me with opportunities. And part of my business goal is to give back to the community, give back to people who have had some issues in their life and need a second chance and need an opportunity. And that's what I mean. Basically, if you go to our website and see what we're about, that's the goal, to give back to the community. Like I said, I'm 61 years old. What can I say have I done with my life in this world? It's my legacy.
That's really amazing. I think you're leaving an awesome legacy, helping out contractors, helping out reformed convicts with your nonprofit and driving school. So awesome. So thank you. We really
Okay.
appreciate you. Cool. Harold, the first question of the FedEx 3 to Thrive is, what was one of the most worthwhile investments you've made into your FedEx business?
Good people. Good people. You um you've got to find good people. You have to uh nurture those good people. Good people will either, those people that you entrust with your business can do one of two things. They can make you or they can break you. And if you find good people and you treat good people good, they'll they'll give you the world.
Great answer. I love that. Our second question is, oftentimes failure in business can be our greatest teacher. Can you talk about your favorite failure and what you learned from it?
My favorite failure. My favorite failure was just trusting somebody without verification. It almost ruined me. Uh, you always, as an owner, have to have some checks and balances for the people that you put in certain places.
Was this a manager?
Even if, I mean, had a short conversation with a guy who works for me now. He's helping me with the school. And, it was a little thing. It was a hole in the wall. I've been asking him for weeks to, patch the hole in the wall. He made it. He's like, why are you so worried about a small hole in the wall? It's covering, the TV is going to cover it anyway. It's because that's just how my mind works. If you start taking care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. So when they go to paint the wall and they have that hole in the wall, it's a small hole, but they're going to have to patch it. They're going to say, hey, Harold, we're going to charge you an extra $100 to patch that hole in the wall. That's $100. It's small in the grand scheme of things. He said, well, why are you not concerned with the floor? I said, the floor is not my job. We have somebody else over the floor. And until they don't do what they're supposed to do on the floor, I'm going to leave them to it. Your responsibility was the hole in the wall. And I'm asking you to take care of your responsibility. And here's the thing. I've been asked about, do you know that contractor is doing? Do you know what that? No, I don't know what he's doing or what she's doing because I have my hands full with my own business. And whatever they're doing is not putting a dollar in my pocket. So why, don't focus on them. I don't care.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And our final question of the FedEx 3 to Thrive is, what is your favorite part of being a FedEx contractor?
My favorite part of being a contractor, a FedEx contractor, is seeing a driver that started out in school that I trained and now is a FedEx contractor. I don't want to be, I want to be politically correct. And I'm going to say this and hope it's not taken the wrong way. I want to make kings. I don't want to make slaves. And I've told people, if you're driving more than 2 years for me, something's wrong. I mean, that's my, my rationale. I want people to have what I have. I want people to have the opportunity that I have. So if it's fine if you don't have the ambition or the drive, but if I knew a guy that made a couple $1,000,000, I want to ask him. I used to park cars in a high end hotel. A gentleman flew his family in on a private jet, and he flew his driver in on a private jet. And I asked him, I said, what's the key to success? He told me, he said, hire good people. And that's why I say, he said, hire good people. He said, if you hire good people, they'll give you the world. And I just try to hold on, and I try to identify, and I try to hire good people. People who take pride in themselves and pride in what they do will take pride in what they do for you.
Amazing advice. Harold, thank you so much for taking time out to chat with us today. We will make sure that we put a link to your school website in the description so people can find you online. And man, great episode. Thank you so much, Harold.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I consider it a privilege. Thank you. Thank you. It was nice meeting you, Jake.
Nice meeting you as well. What you have built is so unique, and I haven't talked to a single contractor that has built a feeder school into their business that's not only helping their FedEx business grow, but it's also helping their community. And you've done an incredible job. And yeah, this was an awesome episode. So
all right. Thank you.
Routing for Success is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. In today's competitive market, it is essential to acquire the right trucks at a fair price and finance them in a way that makes sense for your business. Leveraging their extensive network of truck and van suppliers, the experts at AP Equipment Financing will help you locate the best deals on step vans, cutaways, panel vans, and more. Deliver them straight to your facility and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description or visit apfinancing.com for more information. Routing for Success is an independent production of AP Equipment Financing and is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by FedEx Corporation, FedEx Ground, Amazon, or any other logistics company discussed herein. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Routing for Success.